And we're up and running. It's a beautiful morning here in the neighborhood. Mr. Rogers' spirit is floating around us and bringing us all sorts of insights, along with Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha. It's quite an interesting and eclectic crowd that we seem to have attracted this morning. How are you guys?
Great.
I'm doing good, doing good. That actually reminds me of something I heard about Gandhi. People talk about Gandhi. Well, he in his later years, he started to have some bad health issues, and because of that, he sometimes had some bad breath, and then he would also walk everywhere, so it made his feet very tough. And all those things together means that he was a super calloused, fragile mystic hexed with halitosis.
Well, you should bring that one to a Saturday.
Oh, yeah. When I was growing up, my generation, the high school guys, we called our underwear Gandhis. And it was because Gandhi was always sitting around in his underwear. So it was a generational thing. If I said that now in public, people would, just stare at me like, what? But back in the 50s, Gandhi was a very prominent figure in our society. So
yeah, very inspiring guy. I think he's a beautiful example of how to live an inspired life. How we can be true to our inner light, even while we're very active and doing things out in the world. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. Activism is not everyone's inner calling, but there are those people who it really is.
Mm-hmm. And if I remember right, one of the Sikh guards was the cause of his transition.
A Sikh guard?
Yeah, one of his guards, that was a Sikh, was the one who assassinated him.
Oh, okay.
I believe that's right. I'm not sure, but it's what comes to mind. So you really have to know that you are surrounded by the Christ, otherwise you may get assassinated. That's the lesson there.
Well, this world is always crazy, and the one guarantee about this world is you never know what's going to happen. So I think in Arten and Persa, they talked in Disappearance of the Universe to Gary, they say, when you wake up in this world, you never know what kind of day it's going to be. And they were sharing that right after they talked about Persa, I think, being assassinated in a previous lifetime. Death happens here. This is a world of shift and change. For all the uplift and joy, we often do find ourselves coming right back into some big shock, some big surprise. Ego loves to surprise us, and there's nothing better than a tragic tale to get everyone invested in the story that's happening. So, and that idea kind of fits a little bit in what you were bringing up before we started, Chris, about this idea of engaging with the world, but through social media. It's very easy to get sucked into what's happening online and see some tragic tale, and all of a sudden we're right there on one side with our pitchfork and our our bonfire ready to torch the bad guy and show everyone who's boss. And we just need to be aware of our desire to do that, and say inwardly, if we start to feel that pull, is this what I really want? Do I really want to join the mob and attack? Or do I want to find some way to be peaceful and loving in this circumstance too?
Yeah, really getting to the point of recognizing the observer in us, that other part of us that sees what's going on, feels what's going on, knows what's going on, and listening to that other voice. Because if we're just in the midst of the fray, in the battleground instead of above the battleground, we are going to get sucked into that ego story. And but it's such a blessing to know that we have that choice. We have that opportunity to go back, have that holy instant where we switch teachers and and turn all that over to Holy Spirit and just kind of be done with it at that moment.
Mm.
Sweet.
And one of the things that brings to mind for me is that we are assured, both in Course in Miracles as well as in the New Testament on a couple of different occasions, that nothing is happening here that God has not given consent to. So even the greatest travesties, they would never have happened were it not for the fact that God has given allowance for these occurrences in order for us to learn and evolve. So when we see something hideous, you know, just like when Jesus was standing before Pilate, he says to Pilate, you know, whatever happens here would not happen were it not under the authority of God. So a lot of times our judgments and our observations, our beliefs, our concepts about what is good or bad or right or wrong, in fact, are a part of a greater unfolding. And we have to get out of this mindset that we know what is good and what is bad. You know, that's a great seduction that the ego offers us. Oh, you have the power of judgment. You are good on, you know, this is good and that's bad. And we have to step completely out of any acceptance of all of these events going on around us as ever having been real. And that can really be a very challenging journey when you start to get into that level of your own awakening, because you see things that are hideous, you see the appearance of things that are beyond belief, and the truth is they are not real. And so you are offered the opportunity to stand up and not resist, but to completely negate the power of this world. And we do that by the affirmation that the only power there is the power of God.
Yeah, it's true. We come back to God is our truth. God is reality, and nothing else is real. And what does that say? Well, it says if God is love, if God is eternal life, then anything that is not loving and eternal is not true. Right? So that means that death is not true. Right? Jesus tells us there is no death. It means that the separation is not true. It means that suffering is not true. It means that pain is not true. So all of these things melt away in the face of the truth. And it's true, as you're saying, Chris, that we do need to look at these things. We often need to look at the things that didn't really happen in order to move through them and release them. So I think it's good to realize that this is all here as an opportunity for our awakening, but also to get that we're the ones that did this, right? God didn't set up this world. God didn't set up the things that happened here. This is all just one sort of big mistake within the mind. And the question is, how invested do we want to be? Just like if we had a loving parent that was standing by the bed of their child, and the child was having a nightmare. That loving parent didn't give the child the nightmare, didn't really have anything to do with the nightmare, and knows that there really is no truth to everything that that child is experiencing. And ultimately, we are going to wake up from this nightmare, the nightmare of people attacking each other, the nightmare of elections that they might be kind of fraudulent or questionable, the nightmare of people dropping bombs on each other, people putting each other in cages. I mean, when we look at this world with open eyes, this is not a home that is worthy of us, right? This world is not worthy of the Son of God, and that is what we are. We are all the Son of God, and we're all going to wake up to the truth of what we are.
I love that. Thank you for that. That's a really beautiful thing for me to carry with me today. You know, this recognition that this world is not worthy of the Son of God, because it's one bleak place, isn't it? There's a great line in here. I was just reading this morning. In fact, I was kind of stuck on this paragraph, and so this is helping me. But why should the good appear in evil's form? Evil's form. And that's what we do when we create these stories. All of this is just a seeming, like you said, we were talking about this Tuesday night. It's just a dream, you know, and that we are, in a sense, being gently awakened from it. Sometimes it doesn't seem so gentle because we're having such a tough time with it. But, you know, we do get this grace that is present all the time. We get touches of that grace that allow us to see, yes, wait, this is not the truth. This is not reality. You know, there is another way of seeing this. And we're taught over and over and over again throughout the course, you know, choose once again. Go back to that other teacher. Go to that knowledge of God inside all of us, the Holy Spirit, and just ask to see things differently. We can see the truth of things rather than the dark side. And start that, have that gentle awakening start for. It's really beautiful, because this world is not worth the Son of God. Thanks. Both. Thank you.
Well, for me, I do believe that, you know, I look back at my childhood and the 1950s and the 1960s, and how much things have amped up since then. And you compare our current era with 30, 40, 50 years ago, and it's astonishing how much more intense this whole idea of separation has become. And that, of course, is in part due to the fact that the ego is recognizing more and more that it is very vulnerable right now. It is being rejected by greater numbers of people than ever in history. And so it's cranking up the volume. So when we see situations like President Trump or Brit exit or the immigration issues at our own borders, all of these things, it becomes very apparent that this is insane and it's not real. So I think that one of the things that a lot of us who are riding this wave, and we're like surfers out there in the middle of the ocean, and we catch a wave, and we see all this stuff going on in the material world, and it creates a huge amount of anger, a huge amount of frustration. And, you know, you go back to the lesson from A Course in Miracles, and lesson number 6, which is really perfectly positioned, because early on, doing the lessons, we are given this idea that none of this is actually real. And this lesson says, I am upset because I see something that is not there. The exercises with this idea are very similar to the preceding ones. Again, it is necessary to name both the form of upset, anger, fear, worry, depression, and so forth, and the perceived source very specifically for any application of the idea. So when we start to get into these weird spaces, it's important for us to recognize that our anger is starting to become very present because we are seeing something that is not perfect. And we need to isolate that specific thing so that our mind is able to grasp the truth in the situation, because the mind is projecting us. And so we have to confront the mind in whatever aspect we can in order to step out of the illusion, in order to step out of the dream.
Yeah, I think it was Einstein said a problem cannot be solved at the same level of thinking at which the problem was created.
Mm-hmm.
this really fits with this idea, is that as long as we are within the ego thought system, we cannot undo it. Right? We have to take the hand of our help, which is beyond the ego thought system, and be gently guided and led to that space, so that we can see, hey, this isn't it. This is not the answer. This is not where my happiness lies, and it never has. It never has. So as we practice that more and more, the intensity of this experience will over time start to diminish. And I say over time because for a lot of people, as they start to work with these ideas, it feels like it amps up for a bit, right? People say, well, man, my life seemed a little easier before I started studying the course. You know, I've heard this from people. And the sense I get around it is, well, in fact, it's no different than it was before you started studying the course, but now you're just aware of what's been going on in your mind. You're more aware of your inner state of being and all the conflict that you just thought was okay. Now you're starting to realize this is not what I want. But in order to heal it, you kind of need to navigate your way through the minefield a bit, or through the briar patch, right? And get your clothes caught on some of the brambles a few times before you start to really say, hey, this is not what I want. This is really not the path to peace. But at the same time, we can use our experiences as that classroom. A little earlier, Chris, you said we are living in a material world, or you used the phrase material world, and I got that song in my head from Madonna. We are living in a material world, and the truth of the matter is we are not living in a material world, right? In spite of Madonna's hit song, what we are coming to see as we study the course is that there is no life here in the material world. And that we are not at home here in the material world. Even as we seem to be experiencing it, our goal is to start to realize that that's not the truth of who we are. And what we really want is to come to that deeper truth that is beyond and outside this world. Even as we are living it, we can tune into that deeper truth.
I'm chuckling because you start talking about Einstein, you know, the 12-step program that I've been involved in for so many years, as a concept, a term that they refer to as stinking thinking, you know, and it's exactly the same thing. You know, the mentors in the program tell you your stinking thinking is not going to fix what is always, you know, been going on for you. You got to have a different way to do it. And of course, the 12-step program does the same thing. It says, turn to this power greater than yourself, you know, and you put any name you want to it. But, you know, there's something other than what we've created here that is that reality that can help us see differently, you know. And again, getting back to what I said earlier, that memory is within all of us, and we simply need, you know, the basis of the course is so simple, really, when you think about it. It's really Jesus just saying you need to change the way you think. You know, you've been thinking with this ego, you've been thinking about this self-created world and this self-created illusion and delusion, with this delusionary thinking, right? And if you think differently, if you think with this other teacher, you will start to see a different perspective. Things will appear differently. It doesn't mean my body's not. I still think I'm in a body walking around on this earth, right? But I perceive it differently. I experience it differently. I experience love, and I experience joining. I experience healing. I experience just deeper ties with people, and because that love, when we focus on that, is ever present, you know, and we can just keep receiving more and more and more of it as we give more and more of it, and it just changes the whole perspective of what this world is. Not that the bad shit isn't still going on, you know. I mean, it seems to be going on still, but we perceive it differently, and that's such a blessing.
It absolutely is. And one thing I think that all of us have to recognize in the way that the Course unfolds for us personally is that it is very personal.
Yeah.
And we do have to look at each individual as, oh, there is another me. There is another part of me. And you have to take the words of the Course in a very personal way. Because if you try to gloss over things or re-identify a statement from the Course as being a generalized statement as not having a personal meaning, then the whole point of it all escapes you. So it really is something that absolutely has to be taken verbatim, very literally in every way. This is it's not a book. It is a personal, direct communication to you from Jesus about reality. And once you start to read the Course in that aspect, from that perspective, then all of a sudden your world does start to change, and you do start to see an entirely new unfolding going on around you that you are not able to perceive at any other period of your life.
It's true. It's true. We really need to listen to these words and say, hey, do I want to go for it? And there's a period that all of us come as we work with the Course where we say yes, right? We really say yes to this practice. We really dive in and we commit to doing it as best we can. We want to do this. We want to apply these principles throughout our life so that we can come into the experience that it promises us, this experience of happiness and joy, what it calls the real world, which is being in this world, but no longer projecting any guilt or upset out onto anyone else or any other situation. This is a state of perfect peace that we're all going to achieve. It's inevitable. And the way that we achieve it is we practice the forgiveness that it offers us. And again, what that is we notice when we think someone outside of us is the cause of our upset. We remember that's not really it, right? I'm never upset for the reason I think. We bring that upset back within, and then we realize that the upset's not there either. Because if we go deep enough within ourselves, the very core of every issue is the belief that we are separate from God. And what does the Course tell us? But there is no separation. Separation has never occurred. This is a false idea, what the Course calls the tiny mad idea, that never happened. And because it never happened, anything that seems to arise from it has never happened either. And what is that? That's the whole world of time and space. It's everything that happens here. It's all these crazinesses on social media or wherever we kind of hook into our ego stuff. And because there's no cause for any suffering, then we are actually free. And then the last step is to ask for help in remembering this and seeing this truly. So calling on Holy Spirit or Jesus and saying, show me how to look at this with a loving perspective. And again, those 3 steps, reversing projection, realizing there's no cause for the upset, and then asking for help. We just do those 3 again and again and again and again with everything. And that's how we show that we are dedicated. And I think each of us finds that choice point at some part of our path where we really say, I'm all in. I really want to go all the way with this. And we commit in an even deeper way. So maybe that's the day for you. Whoever's listening to this video, maybe right now is this moment where you are ready to go deeper, where you are ready to say yes more fully to practicing these principles. And if so, that's awesome. Go for it.
Yeah, I love the point that you're both making. This is an individual course. I say often it's a course for one, right? Me individually, but it's a course for one, all of us, the Son of God. So it speaks to us where we are in the moment and exactly, opening up for us a different vision of the world than we've created for ourselves. We've all created a slightly different world for ourselves. We've all got this determined story of separation going on, and predetermined. We've set it up, and so I'm going to have a different reaction to a particular paragraph of the Course than Barrett might have or Chris might have, and yet the whole of it is going on for the Son of God. This awakening is happening just for the Son of God. There's only one of us that's ever had this tiny mad idea. a tiny mad idea created all these individuals that we think are separate. But it is amazing, you know, when I first started the course, and you both have heard me tell this before, when I read the first paragraph, I just popped the book open the first time I saw it and read the first paragraph, and I was in a hotel room by myself, and I just hopped out of the chair and started pacing back and forth in excitement, because all I could recognize was that this was not written here. You know, this had come from somewhere else. I don't even know that I was quite sure about Jesus being the one who dictated it, but I sure as hell knew that it came from somewhere other than what I'd experienced in this earth. And that excitement stays with me to this day. I can read the same paragraph for the 25th time and be just as excited by it today as I was, 10 years ago. So it's just such an ongoing flow of grace, an ongoing of such joy, an ongoing of such excitement, that we can experience. And, it's different things might ring different people's bells. All our bells are going to get rung.
That is very, very true and very lucid, and we appreciate that aspect that you shared with us, Charlie, because it really is something that when you first start reading the course, you recognize how sublime and profound these teachings are, and it is definitely not something that came from this world.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have got things to do today, so we're running a little bit over here. Eric, you had something to share, and you and Charlie have still got more stuff you're doing in the area too, right?
Yeah, Charlie and I are doing another good news in the Chicago area in Glenview at our location of the space coming up on July 6th, Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11:30. It's available online streaming if you're not in the Chicago area and want to catch some Course in Miracles discussion and a few corny jokes that I always bring. And I have a couple retreats in the meanwhile. I'm doing a camping retreat called Playful Spirit Retreat this weekend, which is June 7th through 9th, and then a healing retreat that I'm leading called Clearing the Way for Spirit in the Green Bay, Wisconsin area at a retreat center up that way. So if you want more information about any of that stuff, you can go to my website, which is barretthedin.com, or the other site I have that's focused on A Course in Miracles and offers classes too is miraclesu.org. That's the word miracles, the letter U.org. So yeah, that's kind of a summary of what's coming up. This has been really fun hanging with you guys today, as always. Just fills me with happiness to have these conversations with you guys.
Yeah, it definitely was very blessed.
Thank you both so much.
Well, we will reconvene in a couple of weeks, so get out there and have fun.
All right.
You too.
Guys.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you. Take care.